Oops, that's lost forever. So I've opened up I've configured the application. It won't take that long to do that over. So I went into an ArcGIS map, ArcGIS Online map, said share, make a web application, chose social media, publish. So I'm creating an application using my map and using that template. And let's view it. You can configure it further here. You can configure specific tools. So on. I can open the app. So here's our app. You can see the map layers. I can change base map. Get a map legend like you get an ArcMap, and check social media. So for example, I can I did that. This doesn't always happen smoothly either. I'm supposed to be authorizing Twitter. Now that I've done that, let me go back and reopen it. I'm authorizing it, but it's not letting me do anything with Twitter. Let me try Flickr. So I could check and this doesn't work as well as Twitter. It's too bad. That didn't work. Sometimes nothing shows up with Flickr. I give up. What it would show is any geolocated tweets, and you can put in a keyword. So I think I may have mentioned emergency management agencies use that during a disaster to get photos and locations. Police agencies use it to track down criminals. Some not very intelligent criminals will brag about crimes on Twitter and have been caught that way. I don't think they realize it is public, although they tell me that they do realize it. It's kind of a macho thing to brag about it, but it also helps you get caught. So it's a fun toy. I mean, last when I did this as part of 555, I put in Buffalo Sabres in Twitter, and you got all sorts of interesting comments for the class to see. And a couple years ago, I haven't been to the ESRI user conference for Rugged. I'm going this year. Are you going? I'm going to end up going too. I wasn't here, but I heard that they were showing this off for the first time, and Jack made a very poor decision. He said, everyone get out your phones in the audience and tweet a special message to Esri and watch it pop up on the map. That demo ended prematurely because people had a lot of special messages for Esri. So I don't think they do that anymore. I would have loved to have been there for that. So you can see how you can take a map. There's a little bit of a hierarchy here. We have, at the very base, I didn't really talk about it much, you have a service definition. The service definition is kind of like an MXD. In fact, in 10.0, there was an actual .sd file. It doesn't do that anymore in 10.1 and 10.2. But the service definition is like the MXD. There's the analogy for you. The features that are loaded are like the actual feature class or geodatabase. That contains the actual GIS data. You would see tiled images if we had a tiled image service, which we don't. We'll talk more about that later. I created a web map. That's actually sort of like the MXD too. It's a little bit different. Surface definition, features, web map, and then finally web mapping application. You don't necessarily have to make an application. You could just share your web map like we have. So that's an introduction to ArcGIS Online. Oops. Okay, here's where I was. And here's a screenshot from previous, just a different style application. And this one's not available anymore. It also had a Twitter option. You can tell I like that. The configure pop-up that you did in your map, of course, still holds true in the application. If I think in Lab 3, the final thing you do is make an application. If that problem persists, you won't. I obviously can't hold you to doing that. I would stop. If that's happening to everyone where you can't choose a template, just stop at web map and that'll satisfy the requirement for Lab 3. If we can't go further for some reason. I say this way too much in this profession. I've never seen that before. So here, I actually did put on this screenshot, I think it was from May 2013, I put Sabres in, and it actually mapped location, or no, I put Buffalo. You can see here, and it mapped locations where people had made a comment with a buffalo in the hashtag. And this gentleman looks like near Pittsburgh, said Buffalo and Toronto are killing tonight. That's a very unusual, must have been a very once in a lifetime occurrence for him to say that. I'll definitely keep this slide for future reference. It's probably, well, it says Pens. I bet it's a Penguins fan and maybe we were spoiling another team's hopes at catching up to them or something. Okay, we are getting way ahead. Are there any questions so far? So I said that this isn't necessarily programming, but I wanted to expose you that there's more and more interest in this. This time last year, no one in my company had any interest in it, and now it's just exploding, even though, and I would say there's other organizations that are even more into it than we are. So I think it's good for you to have exposure to it. You can claim that you worked on it in your classes for your resumes and so on. I think it's worth getting in. It's really, I won't say come out of nowhere, but it has come out of nowhere. 5 years ago, this didn't exist, and now it's becoming a very dominant force in GIS and ESRI software. We can also use ArcGIS Online as an online data capturing tool. So we're almost done with that lecture. We'll take a break. If I open, I don't know, June16 text map. I can disable editing. By default, editing is enabled. Okay, hold on. Those don't even have the option. Because of the sharing. US states, for example, I can disable it or I'll leave it enabled. I can click edit. I must have something else in the other settings that prohibit those from being edited. And I can add a new state. I can just click to digitize. And unfortunately, this happens a lot too. Oh no, click Alaska. So we're making an Alaska. I'll call it Lake Ontario 1. If I had it set up, I don't. I think I have some slides later on how you might do that in your own organization. You can enable attachments so we could upload photos easily to associate with this feature. our field teams when they're capturing points that represent a potential problem in construction. And what we enable them to do with that is then they take a photo with their iPad and attach the photos to the problem point. Now I can add a Kansas next to Alaska. I just discovered this yesterday. You can snap. I've always been telling everyone you can't snap on ArcGIS Online, but you can hold the control key down and snap to an existing feature. If you want to do that. I never knew you could do that till recently. There's always something new. And then for any of these, we can click and change the attributes. Well, that's where another odd thing about this layer is it requires it to be one of the... Try something. There's a domain on this for some reason. It's requiring it to be one of the 50 states. I'm putting in other names. It's not accepting it, which is odd. Was this? I think it is a it's our own service. I don't know. So that is the end. It's a little early. I think we will be going ahead. We'll it might be a good time to take a little break. I'll stop this.